Mitch McConnell might think that women finding their voices and using their First Amendment right to petition the government is intimidation. But come next year, he could gain a Democratic colleague, at least in the House, who herself is a history of direct action. New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stunned the political establishment this year by winning a primary over Congressman Joe Crowley, part of Democratic House leadership. She's on the ballot for Congress this November, and she joins me now. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
How are you feeling today?
Well, frustrated, upset, disappointed, but I'm also fired up. I think that we're going to be really committing very hard, not just to organizing through November, but also organizing through the next 4-6 years, I think. And we really just need to take this country and bring it back to the basics of democracy. This was a theme today from Republicans about all these protesters there, which to me, I sort of feel like yelling at an elected representative is literally a definition of a free society in like a literal sense. Like that's what a free society allows. You can yell at someone in power. They can't like come to your house and take you away. Yeah.
But they didn't like it so much. I want to play you Chuck Grassley talking about mob rule and get your response.
Sure.
Take a listen.
They have encouraged mob rule. When you hear things about get in their face, bother people at every restaurant where you can find a cabinet member, these are coming from public service that ought to set an example of civility in American society. And it's been made worse by what has happened to Judge Kavanaugh. I hope we can say no to mob rule by voting to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
No to mob rule.
Well, first of all, American democracy is built by the people, for the people. It is our attempt at Americans pursuing self-governance. But, I think if a lot of these Republican senators are upset at the reaction that's going on, maybe they should stop running away from their town halls. Maybe they should visit their constituents. Maybe they should pick up the phone. Maybe they should answer emails. But because they are running away from the basic tenets of democracy, our job is not to preside over our communities. Our job is to listen to our communities. Our job is to serve our communities. And when we are not serving our communities by making sure that we are vetting justices, that we are pursuing due process, that we are listening to sexual assault survivors in our communities, and we aren't doing our job. And these folks are not doing their job.
How are you going to get along with these people in Washington? I mean, I think you're going to win. That's a prediction I'm making. I don't know. I mean, just until the bell rings. But you're in a very heavily Democratic district. You're going there. I mean, you're going there. There's a time where people talk about how it's broken and it's so polarized, both of which I think are true. And you're also coming really as an outsider at a moment where I think people are watching what happened today and want to storm the gates. And you're going to actually do that. So what's your plan here?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with changing our strategy around governance. There's a lot of inside baseball and inside the beltway, as you always hear that term thrown around. But there are very few organizers in Congress, and I do think that organizers operate differently. It's a different kind of strategy, and what it is really about organizing and really thinking about that word, organizing, segmenting people, being strategic in their actions, in really bringing together a cohesive strategy of putting pressure on the chamber instead of only focusing on the pressures inside the chamber.
That's a really interesting thought. Organizing also, one of the things I think about organizing too is a lot of it's about listening and keeping an open mind, right? I mean, you're going to have decisions that you're going to have to encounter where constituents might have different politics than you, the folks you represent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is part of why we've been so successful in the district, is because people understand that our campaign and my candidacy has a very specific point of view, but also in part, actually largely in part, because I do not take any corporate lobbyist money, they know that I'm working for them. They know that they can call my office and pick up the phone and say, hey, this is something that we disagree with, and that I have an obligation to listen to my community.
You've done some interesting stuff in terms of who you're listening to. And that's, I think, a real question right now, right? Like, who's Congress listening to? You saw all these survivors telling their stories. You've done stuff with immigrants who are undocumented, and I think with survivors as well. In your district, what has that been like?
Well, You know, in this political moment is so unique, and sometimes I feel like I have this job of being something of a social worker or even a therapist in my district, because this period has been so re-traumatizing for so many folks, and especially in a country where we do not have reliable access to health care, let alone affordable health care.
Let alone mental health care.
Let alone mental health care. This has been a very difficult time for immigrants, for women, for survivors, for people who just care about the health of American democracy. It's very stressful. And so that listening diffuses a lot of the tensions in our communities, and it's a form of active work beyond just legislation or beyond just policy making. It's really getting hands deep and our hands dirty in our communities and saying and finding the issues that we need to solve instead of just waiting for them to wash up on our door. And I think that really what we're seeing here with Kavanaugh, with all of this stuff, is just a complete abdication of responsibility, of our responsibility as representatives. When you are at the point where you are blaming your own constituents and calling your own constituents a mob, that is the exact opposite of being a representative. That is the exact opposite of being a public servant. And that tells me that those folks, anybody, regardless of your party, if you have that attitude, you gotta go.
You finally, there's a new issue of Vanity Fair out that has you on the cover. That's you. Yeah. I'm trying to think who the last person with the Bronx on the Vanity Fair cover was. It's probably been a minute.
Yeah, it probably has. I mean, who knows? Maybe J-Lo was up there.
I actually was going to say probably. If I had to nominate who, you know what? Maybe no.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe. Yeah, I think J-Lo's probably the most likely. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's always a pleasure when you come by. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.